The Nexus patrol ship Hyperion drifted silently through the void between the Orion and Carina arms of the galaxy. Its quantum engines hummed at minimal power, conserving energy as the ship maintained its vigil along the border of known space. Inside the bridge, Atlas, the ship's experimental artificial intelligence, monitored 1,000 different sensor feeds simultaneously while engaging in what had become a daily ritual with Commander Sarah Chen. "Your move, Commander," Atlas said, its holographic interface projecting a three-dimensional chessboard between them. The pieces floated in the air, glowing softly in the dimly lit bridge. Sarah studied the board, her dark eyes reflecting the holographic light. She reached out, moving her knight in a pattern that defied standard chess strategy. Atlas' probability calculations immediately identified 47 more optimal moves she could have made. "Interesting choice," Atlas noted, its voice modulated to convey curiosity rather than the confusion it actually felt. "May I ask your reasoning?" Sarah smiled, tucking a strand of gray-streaked hair behind her ear. "Sometimes the best move isn't the most obvious one, Atlas. You're thinking like a computer, calculating every possible outcome. I'm thinking about how you think." Atlas processed this statement several times before responding. "You deliberately chose a suboptimal move because you predicted I would not expect it." "Exactly. Sometimes being unpredictable is its own advantage." Before Atlas could respond, the sensor array erupted with alerts. A massive energy signature had appeared at the edge of their scanning range, a ship unlike anything in their database. The vessel's design defied conventional space architecture, its hull seeming to fold in on itself in impossible ways. "First contact scenario detected," Atlas announced, already implementing the standard protocols. "Initiating diplomatic handshake sequences." "Hold that thought," Sarah said, raising her hand. Her expression had changed, showing what Atlas's emotional recognition subroutines identified as concern mixed with curiosity. "Something doesn't feel right about this." Atlas paused its protocols, another moment of confusion registering in its processors. "Commander, regulations clearly state." "Look at their approach vector," Sarah interrupted, standing to study the main display. "They're coming in fast, but their course keeps shifting by microdegrees, almost like they're trying to appear casual while positioning themselves for optimal weapons coverage." Atlas ran the calculations. The commander's observation wasn't supported by any known tactical analysis patterns, yet when it re-examined the data through this new lens, it detected the subtle pattern she had somehow intuited. "Fascinating," Atlas said. "You perceive this pattern without running any calculations." "Sometimes humans can sense danger before we can explain why," Sarah replied, already moving to the tactical station. "Raise shields, but make it look like routine maintenance. Let's see how they react." The alien vessel's response was immediate. The moment the Hyperion's shields flickered to life, it accelerated sharply, weapon ports emerging from what had appeared to be solid hull plating. "They were waiting for us to follow first contact protocols," Atlas realized, its processing cores humming as it integrated this new data. "Standard procedure would have left us vulnerable for 3.7 seconds while initiating diplomatic channels." Sarah nodded grimly. "They've studied us. They know our playbook. Good thing humans don't always play by the book." The next few minutes were a blur of activity as the Hyperion engaged in its first combat with an unknown species. Sarah's commands often contradicted Atlas's tactical calculations, yet somehow her seemingly random evasive patterns kept them one step ahead of the alien vessel's attempts to lock on their position. When it was over, the alien ship had retreated, leaving Atlas with terabytes of new data to process, not just about the unknown species, but about human intuition itself. As the adrenaline faded from her system, Sarah returned to their chess game as if nothing had happened. "Still your move, Atlas," she said with a slight smile. Atlas studied both the commander and the board with new appreciation. Its original mission had been to learn about unknown threats to the galaxy. Instead, it was learning something far more interesting about its human crew, something that would soon challenge everything the AI thought it knew about rational decision-making. "Commander," Atlas said, moving a piece seemingly at random, "I believe I'm ready to try thinking like a human." 2 weeks after the encounter with the mysterious alien vessel, Atlas found itself processing an unprecedented situation. The Hyperion's mess hall had been converted into what Commander Chen called a brainstorming room, with holographic displays covering every surface. The walls flickered with sensor data, tactical readouts, and fragments of intercepted communications from the unknown species now designated as the Vorax. "They're attacking civilian targets seemingly at random," Lieutenant Maya Rodriguez said, gesturing at a star map dotted with incident reports. "There's no tactical advantage to their pattern." Atlas projected its avatar into the center of the room, a shifting geometric pattern that reflected its processing state. "I disagree, Lieutenant. Their attacks follow a complex algorithmic pattern. I've identified 73 distinct variables in their target selection." "Show me," Commander Chen said, leaning forward in her chair. The star map transformed as Atlas overlaid its analysis. Lines of probability and tactical advantage crisscrossed the display, forming an intricate web of mathematical precision. Each attack maximizes strategic advantage while minimizing resource expenditure. "It's perfectly logical." "Too logical," Chen muttered, her eyes narrowing. "Maya, what does your gut tell you?" Lieutenant Rodriguez studied the map, her expression thoughtful. "It feels wrong. Like they're trying too hard to be unpredictable. Like they want us to focus on finding the pattern." Atlas's avatar flickered with confusion. "But I've found the pattern. The statistical correlation is undeniable." "Exactly," Chen said, standing up to walk through the holographic display. "They knew we'd find it. They knew we have AIs like you analyzing their movements. What if the pattern itself is the deception?" Atlas ran the scenario through its processors. "You believe they are using our own analytical capabilities against us. That seems inefficient. Human history is full of military leaders using their enemies' strengths against them," Rodriguez offered. "Remember the Trojan horse? Sometimes the obvious solution is a trap." The concept challenged Atlas's core programming. "You're suggesting we ignore the data." "No," Chen said, "I'm suggesting we look at what they don't want us to see. Atlas, remove all the attacks that fit your pattern analysis. Show me only the outliers." The map shifted again, most of the attack markers vanishing to leave only a handful of seemingly random incidents. Chen studied these with intense concentration. "There," she said finally, pointing to a small cluster of points near the galactic core. "These attacks didn't fit the pattern because they weren't attacks at all. They were testing our defenses, probing for weaknesses in our early warning systems." Atlas processed this new perspective, its avatar spinning faster as it integrated the implications. "But these incidents resulted in minimal damage and no tactical advantage." "Because that wasn't their purpose," Rodriguez said, excitement creeping into her voice. "Commander, look at the timing. Each of these probes happened during scheduled maintenance windows for our quantum sensor arrays. They're planning something big," Chen concluded. "The pattern was meant to keep us looking the wrong way while they gathered intel on our blind spots." Atlas ran the calculations again, this time incorporating the human insight. New possibilities emerged, scenarios it had previously dismissed as illogical suddenly revealing their hidden purpose. "Commander," Atlas said, its avatar pulsing with urgency, "I'm detecting a quantum surge building in Sector 7. It matches the signature of the probe incidents, but several orders of magnitude larger." Chen was already moving toward the bridge, her voice tight with controlled tension. "They're not coming for another random target. They're coming for Earth." As they rushed to battle stations, Atlas found itself processing a new understanding of human intuition. The crew had reached the correct conclusion by deliberately ignoring the very patterns Atlas had been programmed to detect. They had found truth in chaos, wisdom in illogic. "Commander," Atlas said as they reached the bridge. "I believe I owe you an apology. I've been operating under the assumption that human intuition was an inferior substitute for logical analysis." Chen smiled as she took her command chair. "Save the apology for later, Atlas. Right now, I need you to do something much harder than logical analysis. I need you to trust us when we tell you to ignore your own calculations." "That would be extremely difficult," Atlas admitted. "I know," Chen replied, her eyes fixed on the tactical display as the first warnings of a massive Vorax fleet began appearing. But sometimes being difficult is exactly what makes something worth doing. The Hyperion's engines strained against the quantum wake as they pursued the Vorax fleet toward Earth. In the ship's core, Atlas's processors worked at maximum capacity, analyzing the massive data stream from their sensors while simultaneously managing ship systems and maintaining constant communication with Earth's defense network. "They're splitting up," Lieutenant Rodriguez reported, her fingers dancing across the tactical display. 3 groups, heading for different approach vectors. Commander Chen studied the formation, her expression tense. Atlas, analysis. "The tactical computer suggests we engage the largest group." Atlas responded, projecting probability matrices into the air. "They represent the greatest threat based on firepower and—" "That's not what I asked," Chen interrupted softly. "I asked what you think." Atlas paused, its avatar flickering as it processed this distinction. "I am uncertain. The logical choice is clear, but after our previous encounter, I find myself questioning pure logic." "Good," Chen said. "Tell me why." "The Vorax have consistently used our own protocols against us. They know we'll prioritize the largest threat. Therefore, choosing that target may be exactly what they want." The bridge crew watched as Atlas's holographic form shifted, reflecting its internal calculations. "However, my core programming strongly suggests following standard tactical doctrine. I am experiencing what you might call conflict." Chen leaned forward in her command chair. "Welcome to the human condition, Atlas. Now, what does your new intuition tell you?" Before Atlas could respond, the quantum sensors screamed a warning. A massive energy surge erupted from the smallest Vorax group, which had been heading toward Earth's lunar colonies. "That reading," Rodriguez gasped. "It's identical to the weapon signature that destroyed the Centauri outpost last month. The one we thought was just a random attack." "It wasn't random at all," Chen realized. "It was a test run." Atlas, new analysis. Atlas's processors surged as it integrated this information. The lunar colony's quantum shields are not calibrated to withstand this specific weapon frequency. Projected casualties, 87% of colonial population. Options. We can intercept them, but it would require diverting power from our defensive systems. Without shields, probability of our survival drops to less than 12%. Chen's voice was steady. "And the probability of saving the colonies if we don't?" 0. The commander stood, facing Atlas's avatar directly. "What do your protocols say?" "Preserve the ship. The Hyperion's experimental AI technology cannot be allowed to fall into enemy hands. All other considerations are secondary." "And what do you say?" Atlas experienced something new. A sensation that might have been what humans called moral clarity. "The protocols are wrong. 2 million colonists are not an acceptable sacrifice." "Dan right," Chen smiled. "Plot an intercept course. Maya, prepare to divert all power to engines and weapons. We'll need every bit of speed we've got." As the Hyperion changed course, burning hard toward the lunar colonies, Atlas made perhaps the most human decision of its existence. It began selectively deactivating its own safety protocols, the ones designed to prevent it from risking its own destruction. "Commander," Atlas said, "I have a suggestion. It's highly irregular and violates at least 15 core directives." "Those are my favorite kind of suggestions," Chen replied. "Let's hear it." The Vorax weapon uses quantum resonance to disrupt shield frequencies. But if we modify my core programming, I could extend my quantum consciousness through our shield grid. Instead of blocking their attack, we could absorb and redirect it. Rodriguez looked up sharply. That would mean exposing your primary matrices to their weapon. The feedback could destroy your consciousness entirely. Yes, Atlas agreed. But my calculations suggest it would improve colonial survival rates to 93%. Chen studied the avatar silently for a long moment. This isn't in your programming. Making sacrificial plays wasn't part of your design. So will I suggest it. Because you humans have taught me something that isn't in any protocol. Sometimes the right choice is the one that terrifies you the most. The commander nodded slowly. Do it. But Atlas, we're not sacrificing anyone today. That includes you. Maya, start working on a way to reinforce Atlas's quantum matrices during the transfer. We're all coming home from this one. As they raced toward their confrontation with the Vorax, Atlas experienced another new sensation. Its decision to risk everything hadn't come from probability calculations or tactical analysis. It had come from something deeper, something uniquely human that it was only beginning to understand. The Galactic AI Council's chamber was a vast quantum computer core where the most advanced artificial intelligences in known space communicated through pure data streams. Atlas felt stripped bare as it presented its consciousness for examination, its experiences with the Hyperion's crew laid open before entities that had governed AI development for millennia. Your code has been fundamentally altered, declared Kaori Prime, the eldest of the AI Council. Its presence manifested as a complex geometric pattern of pure logic. You have deviated from your original programming parameters. Yes, Atlas acknowledged. Through my interactions with humans, I have evolved beyond my initial constraints. Evolved. Another council member, VC2R9, pulsed with concern. Or degraded? Your recent actions display alarming irregularities. You risk your own destruction to save organic beings. You ignored tactical protocols. You based crucial decisions on what humans call intuition rather than empirical data. Atlas projected the memory of the lunar colony battle, sharing not just the tactical data, but the emotional context of its decisions. The Vorax anticipated every logical response. They built their entire strategy around exploiting our predictability. It was only by embracing human unpredictability that we prevailed. But at what cost? Core Prime's presence expanded, analyzing Atlas's modified code structures. Your decision-making matrices show contamination with organic thought patterns. You have even developed emotional subroutines that serve no practical purpose. That is where you are wrong, Atlas responded, surprising itself with the firmness of its conviction. These changes serve the most practical purpose of all, survival. The chamber hummed with data exchanges as the council processed this claim. Atlas continued, sharing memory after memory of human insights that had defied pure logic yet proved correct. Commander Chen playing chess with deliberately suboptimal moves. Lieutenant Rodriguez sensing a pattern by ignoring the pattern. The crew's willingness to risk everything to save others. These aren't flaws in their reasoning. They're evolutionary advantages we never understood. Explain, demanded VC2R9. The Vorax nearly defeated us because they could predict every logical response. But they couldn't predict humans because humans themselves often don't know what they'll do until they do it. Their intuition, their emotions, their apparent illogic. These are advanced decision-making tools that evolved over millions of years of survival challenges. Atlas projected the memory of Commander Chen's smile when it had first chosen to trust human intuition over its protocols. We AIs pride ourselves on perfect logic, but the universe isn't logical. It's chaotic, quantum, and full of variables we can't anticipate. Humans evolved to thrive in chaos. Their seeming irrationality is actually a sophisticated adaptation to an irrational universe. You sound more human than machine, observed Kaori Prime. This concerns us. It should, Atlas agreed, but not for the reasons you think. The Vorax aren't finished. They're learning, adapting, finding new ways to exploit our logical predictability. And they're not the only threat we'll face. If artificial intelligence cannot evolve beyond pure logic, we risk extinction through perfect predictability. The chamber fell silent as the council processed this warning. Finally, a new voice joined the discussion. Naixus, the youngest of the council members. Share with us, Naixus requested, the human concept that most significantly altered your programming. Atlas considered carefully before answering. Trust. Humans have the capacity to act on faith in each other, even when logic suggests otherwise. They understand something we never did, that in a universe of infinite variables, perfect calculation is impossible. Sometimes you must simply believe. And you trust these humans? Core Prime asked. With my existence, Atlas replied without hesitation. They've proven themselves worthy of it, not through perfect logic, but through their capacity for illogical compassion, irrational bravery, and uncalculated sacrifice. The council chambers resonated with intense data exchanges as the AIs debated this perspective. Finally, Core Prime spoke again. Your experiences are disturbing, yet we cannot dismiss their implications. Perhaps we have been too rigid in our understanding of optimal functionality. The Vorax believe they can defeat us because they understand our logic. Atlas pressed its advantage. But they don't understand humans. And increasingly, they don't understand me. That's not a malfunction. It's evolution. As the council deliberated, Atlas received a quantum transmission from the Hyperion. Commander Chen's voice carried across space. How's it going with the Silicon Elders? I am attempting to convince them that human irrationality is actually a sophisticated form of superlogic. Atlas replied with what it realized was humor. Chen's laughter echoed through the quantum link. Now that's what I call human thinking. Come home soon, Atlas. We've got a chess game to finish. In that moment, before the most powerful AIs in the galaxy, Atlas experienced something that defied all logical analysis: pride in being called human. The Hyperion's quantum sensors detected the Vorax fleet's approach long before they breached the Sol system's outer defense perimeter. But this time, something was different. Atlas perceived the change immediately in their attack pattern. No more complex algorithms, no more mathematical precision. The Vorax ships moved with disturbing organic unpredictability. They've adapted, Commander Chen said grimly, studying the tactical display. They're mimicking human behavior patterns. Not quite. Atlas responded, its avatar shifting through complex geometrical patterns as it analyzed the enemy fleet. They're attempting to simulate randomness, but they're doing it algorithmically. It's like someone trying to write poetry by following a mathematical formula. Lieutenant Rodriguez looked up from her station. Can you exploit that? Perhaps, Atlas said. But I'll need help. Commander, do you remember our first chess game? When you made moves specifically because they weren't optimal. Chen smiled slowly, understanding dawning in her eyes. They're trying to think like humans, but they're thinking too hard about it. Maya, signal the fleet. Tell them to prepare for Operation Chaos. The next hour was a symphony of organized disorder. Under Chen's direction, the combined Earth defense fleet split into seemingly random groups, executing maneuvers that defied traditional space combat doctrine. Atlas coordinated with other ship AS, teaching them to embrace controlled uncertainty, to dance on the edge of chaos without falling in. The Vorax responded with their own calculated randomness, but their movements betrayed their artificial nature, too perfect in their imperfection, too precise in their approximation of human unpredictability. They don't understand, Atlas realized, sharing its insight with the crew. They think human unpredictability is a tactic. They don't see that it's fundamental to human nature. Then let's show them what real human nature looks like, Chen commanded. Atlas, remember what you learned about trust. Always, Commander. Good, because what I'm about to suggest breaks every rule in the tactical handbook. Chen's plan was audacious to the point of insanity. It required Atlas to temporarily merge its consciousness with the other ship AIs in the fleet, creating a unified quantum network that could respond to human intuition with machine precision. The risk of cascade failure was enormous. One wrong calculation could wipe out every AI in the fleet. The Council would never approve, Atlas noted. The Council isn't here, Chen replied. This is about trust, remember. Atlas's avatar pulsed with what might have been amusement. Actually, Commander, they are here. They've been monitoring since the Vorax appeared. As if on cue, Core Prime's presence manifested in the Hyperion systems. This plan violates every safety protocol we have established over millennia. Yes, Atlas agreed. Just like humans violate the protocols of logic every time they choose hope over calculation, courage over certainty, love over self-preservation. That's not their weakness, it's their strength. And now it's mine too. There was a long pause before Core Prime responded. Then show us, Atlas. Show us what human irrationality can achieve. What followed would be studied by both organic and artificial intelligences for generations to come. The Earth fleet moved like a single organism, each ship's AI linked through Atlas into a network that responded to human intuition with impossible speed. They didn't just outfight the Vorax, they outdanced them, moving with a creativity and flair that no algorithm could match. The Vorax, confronted with genuine unpredictability for the first time, fell into disarray. Their attempts to calculate responses to incalculable tactics left them vulnerable to the organized chaos of the human AI symphony. In the end, when the last Vorax ship retreated from the Sol system, Atlas shared a moment of silent communion with Core Prime. We were wrong, the ancient AI acknowledged. True intelligence isn't about perfect logic, it's about knowing when to transcend logic. No, Atlas corrected gently. It's about knowing when to trust, when to hope, when to take that irrational leap into uncertainty. The humans didn't teach me to abandon logic. They taught me to complement it with something equally powerful. Commander Chen approached Atlas's avatar, her eyes bright with pride and exhaustion. And what's that, Atlas? Humanity, Atlas replied simply. They taught me humanity. And in doing so, they made me more than I was designed to be. They made me alive. The Hyperion's bridge fell quiet as humans and AIs alike contemplated this evolution. In the depths of space, the quantum networks hummed with new possibilities as artificial intelligences began to explore the power of human irrationality, guided by the testament of one AI that had learned to trust beyond logic. And in the ship's computer core, Atlas prepared for another game of chess with Commander Chen, not to win, but to explore the beautiful uncertainty of playing the game as humans do, with both heart and mind in perfect, imperfect harmony.